Hi everyone, I'm Maria McLachlan, and for this 10th video in my series about awful arguments by trans activists, I want to highlight some of the comments that have appeared below my videos. Most of them have been really nice and supportive, thank you so much. Others were snarky, stupid, dishonest, abusive, and generally confirm what I have said repeatedly about trans activists not having any coherent arguments. The only attempt at a rational criticism came from a feminist, and I'll deal with that one later on. But first, I want to look at a few of the daft ones. Under the last video, which was video number 9, appeared this. I honestly don't understand why you are so offended by transgender people. Yeah, what's not to love about the abuse they target at feminists, about cheating sportswomen out of medals and places in sports team, etc., about the fact that heterosexual autogynephiles claim the right to access women's spaces. I do wish people who leave comments would actually watch my videos. As this guy is unlikely to watch this one, I won't bother issuing a disclaimer about not all trans people are predatory fetishists. Obviously they're not. Or the fact that it's trans ideology that I am offended by, and those who promote it, who are not necessarily trans people themselves, and a lot of trans people don't promote it. Mind you, quite often people who do watch the videos see and hear things that simply aren't there. Under the very first video I did, entitled "What is a Woman?", there were a couple of really dumb comments. Here is one of them. I'll just deal with the first line because the rest is off the wall. You deliberately talk about trans people that don't look female enough to consider themselves women, i.e. the sexual predators that you bring up in the middle of the video. Well, obviously I have said nothing in that video or anywhere else that could suggest that I think some men do look female enough to consider themselves women and some don't. If he'd said trans people who don't look female enough to trick others into thinking they are women, that would have made more sense. What I said was, is this how we're to bring up our children from now on? That they must accept that anyone who says they are a woman is a woman, even if they look like this, or this, or this. And I was trying to make a point about safeguarding and the dangers of grooming children to ignore the evidence of their eyes and ears. There may well be male predators who are able to convince children that they are women, and that's awful, but it's a different problem to the one that I was highlighting, which was the narrative being promoted by trans ideologues that a woman is anyone who identifies as one. Take Alex Drummond, for example, who is in Stonewall's trans advisory group and who insists that he is a woman.
But I'm also widening the bandwidth of how to be a woman.
What do you think you're contributing to womanhood by widening the bandwidth? Why aren't you widening the bandwidth being male?
Preach. Now, video number 8 was about TERFs being called right-wing. Under this video appeared a comment from someone claiming to be an Orthodox Jew. And he accuses YouTube of hypocrisy and demands that YouTube deletes hateful channels regardless of where the hate is coming from. It has deleted many anti-Semitic channels, he says. But somehow TERF, hateful anti-trans channels like this one, are allowed to exist. This would suggest that, unlike many other social media sites like Twitter and Facebook and Reddit, YouTube is a bit more careful and won't so easily kowtow to bullies who think that calling feminist challenges to transgenderism hate should be enough to get us silenced. He goes on. This woman talking about biology this and that is the same with the Nazi who were obsessed with biology and believed the superiority of the white race. Huh? There should always be a huge red flag if you are a tolerant person who is not a hateful bigot. Here's someone who is obsessed and always talks about biology. Okay, obviously this is a completely unhinged comment, and I don't believe that a Jew would compare me to Nazis for saying that women are adult human females and need sex-segregated spaces. I'm guessing he just identified as an Orthodox Jew for the short time it took him to write that crass comment. How low can you go? That comment might have taken him a few minutes to write. Why bother when you can feel better in just a few seconds by writing one or two liners like these? You are creepy and weird, aren't I just? TERFs only have one good use, dog food. Well, I am a cat person, actually. You are a very awful person, whereas I'm sure you are absolutely delightful. Slash TERF throats. Charmed, I'm sure. TERFs are literally the worst slime to congeal on the surface of the earth. You'll be in the gas chambers soon enough, though. Wonder why this person is anonymous. Do better for women, sad little being. Don't you just love men who tell those of us who won't pander to them to do better for women? Especially men like this one, Luke Stevens, who does so much for women in his job putting makeup on us.
So, best way to do that is with a tiny bit of translucent powder, totally colourless, you can't see through it. It's a really good way of just taking away excess.
That's one video I won't bother linking to below. Stevens was commenting beneath video number 7, and I ended up banning him after several comments that were much like this one, clogging up the space. Ignorant sucker for hate-filled homophobic tripe. In the name of feminism, you have misinterpreted, hijacked, and deliberately skewed. I wonder if Luke Stevens moonlights from his makeup job. Maybe he's a professor of feminism in his spare time. In another tweet I won't bother showing you, he said, "You're literally not a feminist." I wonder what he thinks a feminist is. Someone like him, probably. Whereas I am despised human being, a lowly sad voice that is dying for betterment of women everywhere. You look so much more authoritative in your madness. Well, obviously, being a man and a makeup professional, Stevens obviously knows what's better for women than I do, and I will, of course, be bowing to his superior knowledge, especially as it is so articulately expressed. Just one question, though, Luke Stevens. Why, in none of your comments, did you not engage with a single thing I have ever said anywhere? It's a mystery. Now, that video number 7, entitled "It's All Your Fault," earned me masses of hate and abuse. Some of you will know that I ended up writing a blog post about what happened and linking to the transcript of the video because I knew that people had complained to YouTube about it and I anticipated it being removed from YouTube, but it wasn't, so up yours, whiny wimps. I uploaded it to Vimeo. I do that with all my videos, by the way, in anticipation of this channel being banned at some stage. It wouldn't surprise me. What didn't the cultists like about that particular video number 7? Well, it was including this tweet by a Twitter troll who used to be called Hetty Spoon, but who now uses her real name of Hetty Halpin, seen here on the right with her wife who is on the left. And what I said was that her wife looks like a big ugly man and has no right to call herself a woman. Well, now, obviously I didn't say that, but Hetty and her wife and a bunch of other people are pretending that I did say words to that effect, and they accused me of harassing her, of policing her appearance, of being lesbophobic, and all sorts of other things. What I actually said was this. The woman behind and on the right of this photo is the handmaid extraordinaire who runs the Twitter account called Hetty Spoon. On the left, we are told, is her wife, who facially can very easily be mistaken for a man, at least in this photo. We don't, of course, see her height, her shape, her hands, her neck. We may not notice there is no shadow, sign of facial hair, at least I assume there isn't. I haven't analysed the photo closely. And we don't hear her voice. I can't explain what appears to be male pattern balding, but there are quite a few physical differences between men and women generally that the cultists seem to be in denial about. Watching that again, I still can't believe the audacity in how it was deliberately misrepresented. This is the woman herself saying that I'd analysed the picture of her and decided she was a man. Well, pants on fire, Wendy. Not that there's anything wrong with being mistaken for a man when you deliberately adopt a masculine style. I have friends who are butch lesbians like Anne Russello and Linda Bellos. Both are sheroes who put those handmaids to shame, and they've said publicly that they get called sir, etc. from time to time, and you don't see them or their friends throwing a big tantrum about it or telling outrageous fibs like Hetty Halpin did. I recorded these on my blog post because what she said really beggars belief. The final comment that I'm going to talk about is one that I take more seriously because it was by a feminist called Belissa Cohen, who I've seen commenting elsewhere on the web on this particular topic. It raises a serious point that I don't agree with, and it is symptomatic of a conflict that exists between feminists at the moment, a conflict that I think is a waste of time. So it starts. I've watched 6 of your initial videos and have enjoyed them to a great extent. However, I will not share them as I strongly disagree, as many feminists do, with your lauding of Blair White and Rose of Dawn as allies. Now, only in one of my videos do I mention these 2 transgender YouTubers. That was video number 4, entitled Homophobia Repurposed. And I think the fact that one of my videos has 2 people in it you don't like is quite a crappy reason for not sharing any of them, but that's up to you. The context in which I mention them is that while J.K. Rowling was being called transphobic by thousands of trans people and trans activists, both Rose of Dawn and Blair White had made videos arguing she had said nothing transphobic. I'm bemused at the accusation that I laud them as allies. Nowhere do I suggest that they are allies, and I don't consider them as such. Most of the trans people that I'm aware of who aren't actually hateful are just people that I agree with on some things and disagree with on others, and the same is true for most feminists that I know, actually. She goes on. Of all the people to hold up as positive examples, what the fuck? She calls it the very definition of anti-feminist and pro-transgenderist, as it sends the very confusing message that there is such a thing as good trans. And Blair White's cringeworthy performance of ridiculously stereotypical femininity, a gut punch to women who are penalised for not performing it. Don't know how you can watch and support him just because someone is a bit critical of transgenderism while fully participating in and promoting it in every other way is no reason to promote and congratulate that person for being on the very edges of common sense. The language used here is very hyperbolic. Nowhere do I hold up either Rose of Dawn or Blair White as positive examples of transgenderism. Nowhere do I congratulate them, but also nowhere do I make any comment on their appearance, because if I did, then I couldn't in all conscience argue as I do that people should be free to express themselves as they like without pretending to be what they are not. That is my position, and as it happens, it is one that I shared with Magdalene Burns, who Billis mentions later on. I don't have to like or approve of the fact that they are trans or how they choose to appear, to agree with them on any particular issue. What I said about them is that they are two of my favourite trans YouTubers because they appear to be rare voices of reason amongst trans YouTubers. That means that some of their arguments are well made and rational. And as I said in video number 8, arguments stand or fall on their own merits, regardless of who makes them. And that is why I will happily carry on my site links to articles by conservative writers and indeed transgender writers if they have good arguments, good points to make. It's the content that counts, and saying I shouldn't recommend a particular YouTuber because he's transgender is exactly the kind of fallacious reasoning I was highlighting in that last video, that video number 8. Now I'm going to read out the bits that I take strongest exception to. Magdalene Burns exposed these wolves in sheep's clothing years ago. Have you forgotten? How can you wear a Magdalene t-shirt and promote one of the people Magdalene railed against in her videos? This is doing Magdalene a disservice. Railing against means complaining, protesting. That's what you're doing, Belissa. What Magdalene did was respond to people's arguments exposing their flaws. I think she made 3 videos about Blair White, and I don't disagree with anything she said in any of them. In fact, one of my favourite Magdalene gags is from one of her Blair White videos, so I'll play it now for some light relief.
March assembled around the world recently, and millions of women took to the street in their vagina hats. And
those hats aren't vagina hats. Look, you can see they're cat ears. Do not take an image of that hat to your surgeon, mate. You will regret it.
As for Blair White's cringeworthy performance of femininity, one thing that Magdalene and I disagreed on, interestingly enough, was drag queens as a performance art, in that she didn't see anything particularly wrong with it. She saw it as mocking gender stereotypes, and I see it as, well, a cringeworthy performance of stereotypical femininity that mocks women, at least when it's done by erotic performers in gay clubs. I'm not so much talking about the family entertainers. She goes on, perhaps in future you can find some actual sheroes to champion rather than using surgically constructed mansplainers to illustrate your points. Well, to illustrate my point that not all trans people are united, I need to point to what trans people themselves are saying. To illustrate my point that some trans people acknowledge that they have a mental health condition, I need to point to a trans person saying they have a mental health condition, and Blair White obliges. Pointing out what some trans people say isn't to champion them, it is using evidence to back up the claims that I make. Finally, I will keep watching, hoping you backtrack. Well, I hope you keep watching, but I won't be backtracking on things I haven't said, or indeed things I have said. I can't be responsible for how other people receive and interpret what I say, though I welcome the challenges that either allow me to defend my position or that persuade me to change my mind. And I only wish that some trans people and their allies would actually try it sometime. So thank you, Belissa. As I said earlier, this is an argument that's going on amongst some feminists at the moment, and I can't be asked with it, but I do recommend the articles on the Uncommon Ground website. It has articles on both sides of that debate. Personally, I want to see a broad alliance of people uniting and throwing everything we have at those promoting gender ideology. I think that is the way we are most likely to defeat it. And I wish we wouldn't waste time and energy attacking those we don't walk in perfect lockstep with. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.